Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world.
Thanks for joining us on From Lab to Launch today. I'm Meg from Qualio, and it's my pleasure to be your host and introduce you to the movers and shakers of modern life sciences. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and we'd love it if you could give us a review on Apple or Spotify. And if you want to be on the show, please see the application linked in the show notes. Today, we're talking to Sarah Englert, Senior Director of Innovation and Program Management at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Earlier this year, Thermo Fisher Scientific opened its first clinical trial innovation lab in Center Valley, Pennsylvania, designed to foster a culture of collaboration by providing a dedicated space for industry partners to come together, share ideas, and co-create solutions for the industry's biggest challenges. One early biotech collaborator saw extraordinary benefits from finding a solution to automate a recurring process, reducing the time spent from 4 days to just 15 minutes. According to Grandview Research, the global clinical trials market size was valued at over $80 billion in 2023, and that's projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 6.5% from 2024 to 2030. But alleviating innovation silos isn't the only way to move the clinical trial industry forward. And it's here that Sarah and Thermo Fisher Scientific mission is focused. So let's bring Sarah in. Welcome so much, Sarah. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Meg.
What has motivated you to join your current position at Thermo Fisher Scientific?
I was motivated to join my current position at Thermo Fisher really for my passion for improving patient outcomes globally and also leveraging my scientific background. So Thermo Fisher has a really strong commitment to innovation, inclusive culture, and the impactful mission to enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. And the admiration also from colleagues that have worked with or for Thermo Fisher in the past was also an additional motivator. When I looked at Thermo Fisher from back when I was in the lab using a lot of their solutions throughout my career, they are a bold company that invests in innovation and to make the world a cleaner, healthier, safer place. So that's where I noticed really a big synergy between the mission and what personally drives me, which is making an impact on patients and the field of medicine. So I thought it was a really interesting time, especially watching the company during the significant role that they played with COVID-19 and some of the bold, innovative moves that they were doing with acquisitions. That, to me, was a company that I knew I wanted to be a part of.
Great. And so how does the innovation lab fit in with the mission of Thermo Fisher and your personal mission, it sounds like, as well?
Yes, that's a great question. So when you look at what we're trying to do within Thermo Fisher and specifically within our division, we're really focused on how do we optimize clinical trials to either make them faster, reach more patients, or to optimize the outcomes. When we have a lab and a space that we can have that time to innovate and to partner and co-create with our clients, it's a space that's dedicated to finding better and new ways of working. So it really gets us outside of our traditional ways of working to be able to think about things differently. And if you look, a lot of companies are doing something similar across industries and even within clinical trials. One example is the FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. They just recently established an innovation lab for similar purposes. It's the Center for Clinical Trial Innovation to foster innovation. So it's a space for us to be able to do rapid prototyping quickly, like no barriers mindset, and to be able to identify the solutions that are going to help us combat some of the challenges that we deal with today. Whether it's patient enrollment challenges or speed, or even just the evolving changes of clinical supply chain and also science. So it's a place for us really to have that no barriers mindset and to co-create with the clients, regulators, and also to take that patient-centric lens as well.
I love taking that patient-centric lens. That always means better patient outcomes usually as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with the patient-centric solutions, that's something that we also leverage the lab for. So when we do our rapid prototyping, we bring clients in, and we also encourage employees and others to come in to get that view and to take that role of the patient, because many of us have been or know someone who has been impacted by a clinical trial. So we really encourage people to put themselves in the patient's shoes, put themselves in the clinic shoes, and also the family members of those patients. A lot of the studies that we do are for adolescents. What does that parent feel like when that direct to patient box comes to the door? Is it chaotic? Is it easy? We have to find new ways to be able to make trials more accessible and also more patient friendly.
I imagine technology is making that maybe easier and maybe more difficult for depending on your population set with technology. Speaking of technology, Sarah, can you describe some of the unique technologies or processes that sets Thermo Fisher apart from other companies in the clinical field?
Yeah, so Thermo Fisher really distinguishes itself through agility and the ability to prioritize urgent patient needs. So in clinical trials, change and speed are something that's common, right? So we have robust processes and mechanisms in place across our global network, such as compassionate use processes, internal prioritization, and that really allows us to quickly pivot to meet either high priority or different types of demands. So in addition to that, we also have our internal practical process improvement business system. And that's really a mechanism for us to be able to develop ideas and implement solutions and tackle some of the big challenges that we have today. And it's also a mindset within Thermo Fisher. So it's a process, but it's also the way that we work is constantly finding a new way to work every day to accelerate trials, to improve patient centricity, or to remove barriers. So that's the other thing that's very unique about Thermo Fisher is if you watch if you ever listen to Mark Casper talk about PPI, or our practical business improvement system, it really comes top down, but it's embodied bottom up. So this is the way everyone here works, and everyone is empowered to find a better way, share their ideas on how to make things faster, more, and to participate and leveraging that practical process improvement business model system that we have.
It sounds like a great foundation for working together and tackling these big challenges. Speaking of big challenges, what's been the biggest challenge in your role and what have you learned from it so far?
The biggest challenge in my role, by far, hands down, has been prioritization. With so many different ideas coming in, when we have clients coming through the innovation lab, a lot of times those conversations will spark ideas. What if it could do this? Or what if we try this? We have lots of innovation and ideas that are coming in through our product management team, employees that are working at the factories, clinics. We have VOC coming in from our client surveys and commercial team members. So the hardest part about my role and innovation as a whole is prioritizing. So when you look at what all these ideas, you have to concentrate at the ones that are the top initiatives, figure out what is the benefit. Is it going to impact one or many? And also the level of effort in order to determine what projects you're going to focus on. The other piece, in addition to relentlessly prioritizing, is also the rapid prototyping. So the sooner we can quickly, iterate different concepts and identify the one that we think will work. And we do that a lot in the innovation lab too, to get hands-on and feedback on concepts to be able to ultimately get us to that end one that will work and will scale. Doing that really quickly is key to success. And it helps us with prioritization. So when I started in this role about 2 years ago, there was a lot of really great projects that were going on and initiatives. However, the timeline seemed long. And when we took a step back and looked at it, we realized that by strategically pausing some of the initiatives that we had that were in flight, it actually would help us accelerate some of the top priority initiatives, speed up work because we have that laser focus of the team dedicated on that top initiative. And in turn, the takeaway was that it really helped us expedite not just that initial project that we were working on and start feeling the results in that study or across different types of innovation and project and clinical trials, but then it ultimately benefited the other ones as well once we had the team completing one and on to the other. So the rapid prototyping, the prioritization have been really key. And some of the biggest challenges, again, are that prioritization decision. But we use data, we figure out impact, level of effort, and we revisit frequently. So things change and we need to revisit our priorities frequently just to make sure we're focused on the right things. So that's been key to our success for sure. The other way I look at it is sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And this was exactly the case here to have a bigger impact or to optimize the impact that we have on a day-to-day basis.
I love that advice. Sometimes you got to slow down to speed up.
Yes. And it's not easy for me because I like to go fast.
Nice. Sarah, what do you think needs to change in clinical trials, and how is Thermo Fisher going to contribute to those changes?
I love that question, Meg. So one of them we already touched on a little bit, but it's really the need to prioritize the patient centricity in clinical trials. And then the second one is really embracing digital transformation and innovation. So when you look at clinical trials today and some of the biggest challenges that exist and that we face are often you have high dropout rates that can delay and often hinder and cancel trials ultimately. And so by designing trials from the very beginning to optimize that patient experience is so critical. And this approach, not only by optimizing it from the beginning, it can help improve adherence, it can help improve recruitment, and ultimately impact the retention of studies. And so that's one of the biggest areas that we're focusing on, whether it's new service innovations like offering more direct-to-patient studies, or like we talked a little bit earlier with some of the technologies that exist to us today. So finding ways to make trials easier and also finding ways to tailor the study needs can really significantly improve that patient experience, patient adherence, and more. The second piece, in addition to the patient centricity, is really that digital transformation and innovation. So we live, and I don't have to, everybody who lives in this day and age knows this, but we live in a truly amazing day and age where last night, for example, for dinner, I worked late and we wanted pizza. So I picked up my phone and without even making a phone call or talking to another human being, within 30 minutes, I was able to order pizza for my family, tailor it to the kids who don't like pepperoni. I like pepperoni and olives on my pizza, and I could watch the dot on my screen literally coming to my front door. So you may ask, that's great, Sarah, but how the heck does that relate to clinical trials? So the technology that we have, there are many similar themes with a clinical supply chain. So for example, over time, those companies have been relentlessly obsessed with their customers and finding ways to improve that customer experience. If people are ordering pizza for dinner, they're probably in a rush. They probably want to get this done quickly. How do you optimize it using technology? And so optimizing the process using digital technology, automation, and innovation. They use smart sensors. That's another thing that we're incorporating into clinical trials. And you can also use them to detect the quality of whatever it is you're working with. So setting temperature control limits to determine when something is flagged towards an upper control limit, I'm going to proactively intervene. So a lot of that technology can be applied across industries. The other thing is making sure your infrastructure is connected and you have data, and that data is good quality data. So connectivity is key, leveraging the data to be able to do more with less. It's almost like a digital twin. Similarly to that pizza path, you can do the same thing with Google Maps on your phone or even for clinical trials. And you can even do predictive route selection. For example, when you're driving in your car and there's an accident, it will automatically reroute and say, hey, there's a faster route. That's where we're getting to with clinical trials, is finding ways using predictive analytics and AI with our historical data, as well as what's going on in the world today, to be able to optimize them. So that's been big, but I think the biggest thing that we need to focus on is really just thinking differently about our challenges, collaborating with clients, working with industry experts and regulatory bodies to solve challenges and to push boundaries that we've faced in the past. So finding new ways, leveraging AI, technology, et cetera, from across industries to really optimize that patient centricity, as well as the clinical trials as a whole, using that digital technology and innovative approach.
Great. Thanks for that, Sarah.
You're welcome. And I love pizza, for the record, so apologize, but I often refer to it. I won't tell you how many times a week I eat pizza, but I do love my pizza.
Fair enough. It's always a staple around here when we're in a hurry as well. Since we are a quality management company here at Qualio, how does quality and compliance impact innovation at Thermo Fisher, and how will that change in the future, you think?
Yeah, so quality and compliance are an integral part of our operations at Thermo Fisher. We have our quality policy, which is to fulfill our mission, like we talked about, to enable customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer by continuously improving the quality of our products, our services, and ensuring compliance with regulations. So we look at quality from a couple different perspectives. We look at it from the perspective of quality for our customers. It means that our customers can rely on us for that operational excellence. And that's part of that PPI mindset that I mentioned before, finding new ways that we can meet their needs and even exceed their needs in terms of their perspectives from quality and having a first-time mindset. The second is the quality for the regulatory authorities. So we're constantly keeping a finger on the pulse. This is a heavily active, regulated area, and things are constantly changing. I saw last week, for example, new guidance coming out on direct-to-patient models and different things. So it's something, even in AI, we're seeing many different regulatory changes. So it means that we need to constantly try and stay ahead, also to partner with the regulatory authorities to make sure that we're operating at the highest ethical standards and meeting and exceeding those regulations. Also, for our employees, quality means that we take personal ownership and accountability to meet whether it's the customer requirements or reducing defects, having a defect-free or first-time right way of working. And then lastly, what it means to our company, this is really the driver for having that practical process improvement system that I mentioned, that in addition to our quality management system.
Sounds like a great culture of quality there at Thermo Fisher.
It's definitely a staple for sure.
Great. Love to hear it as a quality person. Sarah, can you share a pivotal moment in the company's development where you had to make a tough decision, and what was the outcome?
Yes. So I would say a very pivotal moment is during our strategic planning process. And we typically look at our strategic plans over a 5-year horizon. And I alluded to it a little bit before, but one of the toughest decisions that I've faced in this role is prioritization and what initiatives we want to take to move strategy into action. And so, unfortunately, you can't pursue everything simultaneously, otherwise it will slow you down. So the decision-making process here is extremely data-driven, and it's also very well connected and aligned with our long-term vision and our mission. So a notable outcome, I'd say, recently is part of our digital supply chain strategy and the investments that we've made in this area, not only around the infrastructure and the data capabilities and some of the processes that we have in place, but also our new service offerings that we're commercializing to optimize the patient experience or clinical trials to be able to make them more accessible to patients globally. So we've recently launched our real-time track and trace and also different enhancements on that service solution to be able to offer new capabilities in different areas to meet different trial needs. We've also launched our direct-to-patient service line and are continuously enhancing and evolving those capabilities based on regulations and country-specific needs, as well as our client needs. And then lastly, we're also looking at some of the things that we can do in this space with our data, with AI and advanced analytics. And that's all part of that digital supply chain strategy that we have. So the first step is looking at everything end-to-end holistically. How do you optimize the process? How do you digitize it to have a digital twin? And then how do you optimize that? So that way, when supply disruptions occur or you predict something is going to happen, you can proactively mitigate that and optimize the patient experience as well as that quality and that operational excellence that we pride ourselves in.
I love that, being able to be prepared for being able to predict it, be proactive should it happen. I think a lot of people would have liked to have that to have been the case a few years ago when we saw lots of supply chain interruptions.
I think we did learn a lot from that. And also the one thing that I've heard consistently from my peers, and this is nothing new, but change is the one thing that's constant in supply chains across industries. So if you're going to invest somewhere, it's a really good idea to invest in getting good at change. And so that's where we're focused a lot on predictive analytics and how do you spot the warning signs that something is going to come that could disrupt it, whether it's, a weather system or a global pandemic, or having business continuity plans and understanding when to proactively trigger those mitigation plans to be able to prevent disruption is a good investment of time and strategy.
Indeed. Sarah, lots of lessons gleaned from this interview with you, but are there any other lessons from your journey at Thermo Fisher you'd like to pass on to our listeners today?
Yes, there is one that's happened this year that has really been eye-opening for me. So I went to a global clinical supply chain conference earlier this year, and there was a gentleman there that was speaking. His name was John O'Leary, and he is an inspirational speaker who was talking to us about his why. And he actually wrote a book called On Fire. So I highly recommend it to everyone. But what we did as a group, as part of this conference, is we took a step back and we talked about each other's why and why we do what we do and the personal motivations that inspire us. So from that conference, I took that learning and brought it back into our town hall. And I had simply just asked at the beginning of the session if anyone themselves or had known a loved one that had participated in a clinical trial. And the response was overwhelming. Everyone, there was just in Teams, how they have that thumbs up and the likes. There were so many people who had been touched by clinical trials. And we encouraged people to share a little bit with each other and also in the chat, their personal stories. And everyone, the response, like I said, was overwhelmingly positive. And it really helped to reignite that collective passion that we have in our division and why what we're doing matters. There's so many times where we're working super fast, things are changing. There's really tough challenges that we're working together to tackle, and just taking a moment and talking about our why, it helps provide that focus. And it also helps reignite that passion and that determination that we have to make things better, to find ways to get trials to more patients, to be able to improve quality and to ultimately impact the outcomes of these trials. So I guess the lesson there is really take the time out of your day to ask your team members and your peers about their why. It brings clarity. And like I said, it brings the fire that fuels the determination that it's why we wake up every day and love what we do. And for me personally, at the end of the day, when I tuck in my kids at night, I'm so proud to tell them what I did over the course of the day because of what it connects to and how it can impact patients and their families. So the takeaway there is just talk about your why and be open.
I think that's such a great reminder for all of us as we're just trying to get through our weeks sometimes to step back and think about our whys. That's great advice, Sarah. Well, our last question is more of a fun one that we like to ask each of our guests. And normally I ask about books, but since you brought up pizza, what is your ideal pizza toppings?
It depends on if it's the first, second, or third time I'm eating pizza that week. No, I'm kidding. I don't eat it that much. But my daughter is recently turned vegetarian. So I have been enjoying pizza a lot with the spinach and the tomatoes, finding new ways to eat those vegetables and some of those essential nutrients through pizza. So we've been getting a lot of veggie pizzas recently, and they're delightful.
And aren't kids just like the real world? Change is inevitable.
Oh, yes. Yes. She's turning 10 and she decided to change up her diet, and I give her credit. So it's trying something new.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Sarah. It was lovely speaking to you today and learning about your mission and your why and all the work going into Thermo Fisher's innovation labs. Where can our listeners go to follow along and learn more about you and Thermo Fisher?
I'd say LinkedIn, and also our Thermo Fisher website is a good spot. We also have on the LinkedIn network, you can follow Thermo Fisher, and they do post a lot of really great things. For example, we have an upcoming conference. This week we're at CPHI, and then upcoming is we're participating in the Global Clinical Supply Chain Conference in Malta, and lots of really fun and exciting events. And also we have a lot of updates on the Innovation Lab and some of the things that are going on there. Different STEM days that we have across the community, different types of roundtable events, and more. but definitely thermofisherscientific.com or LinkedIn.
Great. We'll get those posted in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining us today, Sarah. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Meg. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.